HMG Strategy presents highlights from the recent New York CISO Summit.
When you talk about developing an innovation program or leadership style, it really is who you select as your leaders.
Fixing the past is very expensive. So if you talk at CTOs or the head of engineering, when you ask them to fix something that is already implemented, it's very expensive. So you're going to free up a lot of developer times for those CTOs by doing security right from day one.
How do you decipher? So you have to have a really strong working relationship with your general counsel, with your chief compliance officer, to really have those robust conversations, to pick apart the regulation, whether if it's DFS, CyberReg, whether it's the SEC, and say, how does this event stand up to the regulatory requirement, and make sure that you're then disclosing accordingly.
The goal isn't to say every sitting CISO should be on your board. The goal is to say, get access to the information and the knowledge.
CyberStarts was an incredible opportunity for us because they brought to the table much more than capital. They brought a vast network of CISOs and security leaders that were kind enough to spend time with us when we didn't have an idea yet, when we didn't know exactly what we were building. Mike Anderson here in the crowd was fortunate to have one of those calls in the early days.
New York has a AI HR employment law. So if you're using a ATS type of system to track applicants and use that to help make informed decisions, are you going to hire a person or not, you have to start to be able to give people that ability to opt out. There's concerns about, from an auditing, right, your bias perspective, right? Are you having a platform or tool make an informed decision without any sort of oversight from a human being?
Do we have the right regulatory structure? So for a lot of you that would already meet any sort of regulatory requirements, you're having a tough time competing against companies that aren't. And we need to reward the companies that are meeting the baseline requirements. But if we're going to have more regulations, it's got to be targeted. We don't want to impose any additional costs that are absolutely necessary. It's got to be risk management based. It's got to be nimble. It's got to be able to evolve. And we believe strongly that it needs to be harmonized, especially in the financial sector, but increasingly in other sectors, especially with more and more regulations coming online. And there's a lot of independent regulatory agencies that the executive branch doesn't really have a lot of control over that are putting out more and more regulations, right? And so we're having conversations with the regulatory agencies to try to make sure that there's harmonization so that you don't have redundant, duplicative sort of regulations